Welcome to the HEARTS Entwined podcast. In this podcast, we'll be having discussions around the secrets which attract lasting, healthy, fulfilling relationships, creating a healthy mindset, and what women should know and understand about men. Introducing your host, Lyn Smith, the Queen of Hearts, relationship expert, trainer, speaker, and best-selling author of the Cupid's Bow technique. Lyn's mission is to have a positive impact in reducing divorce, domestic violence, and suicide.
Welcome to the HEARTS Entwined podcast. This is your host, Lyn Smith, the Queen of Hearts. And I'm really excited today to have Dr. Stephen Paul Edwards on the show. He's the author of the Venus Flytrap, which sounds intriguing right from the bat. So welcome, Stephen.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Lyn. I'm looking forward to this. I think, based on the conversation we just had, I think we're going to have some fun, and I think the audience is going to love it. So I'm ready.
So I think, if I'm understanding this right, your book is all about what causes obsession, especially to people who end up hurting us, or it's about when does attraction become an unhealthy trap? Around those sorts of lines. Am I on the right lines?
Yeah, you're on the right lines. Yeah. So what I've learned from this experience. And this is a belief I've had for a long time, but sometimes you forget, right? You have to forget in order to remember, right? And the universe plays tricks on us. So I've been a spiritual counselor for over 25 years. I have been involved in the personal development arena for over 30 years, right? Speaking, I work with Tony Robbins and a lot of very famous people in that arena. And so, people are going to say, and I say this in the book, how the heck does someone with all that incredible experience and credentials end up having this incredibly toxic relationship, right? So these things happen not to us, but for us. So she didn't do anything to me, she did it for me. What do I mean by that? Well, everything is a mirror, right? Everything is a mirror of who we are. And so she was mirroring back to me pieces of myself that I'd given away over the course of my life, or I hadn't embraced or hadn't accepted as part of myself, so that I could heal them, right? And those things tend to happen when you're in a very weakened state. Very often after you get burnout, you're so exhausted, everything that you've been doing you don't care about anymore. You're so tired that you're weak. In terms of the resistance that you have to all these things, because you've been resisting it, whether you realize it or not, you've been pushing it away because you're either too afraid, unaware, or whatever the reason is. And then so the universe, God, whatever you want to call it, puts you in a place where your resistance is low. There's a void in your life that has to be filled because the universe abhors a void. And so usually something or someone will come in and, as I say, kick your ass, right? Get you straightened out, right? So she definitely did that, which was a gift. So, I'd say to people say, well, what is the fallout from this? And how long did it take you to heal? Well, I did go through a healing process, but I wouldn't go through that experience again. Does that make sense? I think most of us can say at some part of our life, we had an experience where, you're better for it, but you'd say, I definitely don't want to go through that again, right? You know what I mean? So that's kind of where I am with it. Going through it was a different matter. But like anything, you're obviously getting something from it. Otherwise, you wouldn't keep doing it, right? So I was getting a lot from the relationship, and I would constantly be checking in with myself and going, so here's, everybody talks to themselves, right? You're going, so I should probably break up with her now, right? And I'm talking to the reader at the time. I'm going, you probably think I should have broken up with her, right? And I'm going, yeah, but here's the deal. If I had broken up with her, you wouldn't be enjoying this incredible story, would you? I'm joking with them. And I go, but I had to ask myself, I could break up with her right now. And I could go back to a relatively mundane, normal life, or I could stay with a 6-foot-tall former supermodel living in a mansion with a sex room. I don't know. What would you do? So, I stayed with her maybe longer than most people think I should, which I understand. But in the end, it became, as I knew it would in the beginning, untenable.
Mm. So how many years was that? Because I'm guessing this is all based on your own personal experience.
Oh yeah, this is this is my yeah, yeah. So for good or bad, right? Yeah, it was definitely my own personal experience. So it went on for about 3 years.
Okay. And sort of what do you think was the reason for why you were in that vulnerable state in the beginning, when you first attracted that relationship into your life?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I this is, this is all in the book, and it's not, I'm not like, this is not me coming out right now with all these things, right? I was going through my fourth divorce. So what does that, and I tell people, listen, what I've learned is you don't have a relationship problem, you have a pattern problem.
Yes.
You created this problem in your childhood. You're probably not even aware of it. And most people don't think about that and they don't explore it. And so they don't identify the patterns. So the the advantage I had over all this is I had all these tools. I'd learned all these things to be able to heal. Does that make sense? And to recognize it didn't happen to me, it happened for me, and find the gifts, right? That she was reflecting back at me. Not many people have that. Not many people are going to go through that experience and go, yeah, just got to check my childhood. I find the pattern and I'm good, right? They tend to feel like, and totally understandable. And I say, people, don't feel bad about it. It's okay. Then people say, what's wrong with me? I go, there's nothing wrong with you. You just got to change a few patterns that you're creating this. Don't take it so hard, and I tell people, and this is true. I ask people, have you have you ever been in a toxic relationship? And nearly everybody says yes, right? If
Yes.
someone says no, I say, well, you need to get out more often. Right? So,
Yeah.
so it's kind of like, in life, you're going to go through challenges, and you're going to be in relationships. And without realizing it, you're bringing all the baggage with you, right? You're bringing all those patterns that don't serve you into a relationship. So you're not really giving yourself a good start, right? You're not really giving yourself a lot of chance, right? So, uh, so I knew it wasn't going to be tenable, but I was kind of like, I'll tell you a quick story what I mean right at the beginning. People tell you who they are within the first 3 minutes of you meeting them, always, right? So I'm on the dating site with her, right? I mean, she's just gorgeous, right? And she's obviously comes from tremendous wealth, so whatever. So I'm thinking, how am I going to get this girl to go on a date with me, right? So I get it to. So no, this is an international website, right? But she lives like 30 miles down the road. I mean, what are the chances, right?
Ah, wow.
No coincidences, right? So I finally get her to agree to go for a coffee with me, right? I mean, pretty weak, right? A coffee. So then she agrees to do that one day. The next day she cancels, right? I'm thinking, oh no, right? So then I got to get her go on a date, and I got to make sure I don't give her any room to cancel, right? So I'm texting her and I'm telling her I've set up this amazing date, which I did. It's a anybody that goes to that kind of an extreme on a first date is mentally ill, right? So anyway, so she agrees to go on the date, and I gotta tie this down. So I text her and I say, "What's your favorite flower?" Now I'm letting her know I'm gonna buy her some flowers, right? So she texted back, "Bird of paradise." And I love to joke around. I think, humor is a big part of my life. So I texted her back and went, nah, mine too. And then I said, it's a bit expensive though. So what's your second favorite? And she comes back instantly, Lyn, Venus Flytrap.
Really? Ah, wow.
So she named the book and she named herself, right? So on the outside, she's this beautiful bird of paradise, right? And in England, we used to call girls our bird, right? Our girlfriend was called our bird. I'm going to take my bird to the pictures or whatever, right? And on the inside, she was the Venus flytrap, you know. So she named herself in the first few minutes of his no of his meeting, right? And so it is. But when she said that, my intuition sends alarm bells off, right? And says to me, she's dangerous. And I go, Yeah, but I like danger, right? So I
That
overrode
can
it,
also
right?
be quite intriguing, right?
Yes, right. And I'm an adventurer. I'm a risk taker, right? It's part of my nature. So, but my point is, one of my points is, who would ever ask a woman what her second favorite flower is?
Mm.
That
Yeah,
doesn't happen, right?
no, that's
But I
true.
did, right? So that was also synchronistic, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I got to the truth there, and anyway, I paid the consequences in the end. But it wasn't so terrible. Right? I did have some good times. And there was a deep connection between the two of us, and so many mirrors. Like I made a joke earlier about you know the amount of effort I put into the first date was because I was mentally ill, but I was. I had an episode when I was 16 and I was put into an asylum in England, right?
Really? Wow.
Yeah, I know, right? But so was she at the same age here in the United States.
Mm.
So what are the chances of that? So you got two, mentally
So a
ill
bit of a
people.
trauma bonding exercise there for the two of you.
There you go, right? So her father put her in an asylum. He never told me what she did. All he did say was that she did some terrible things when she was younger. I never asked. I mean, what are you going to say to her father? Well, what did she do, right? You're not going to make him tell you, right? And she would never tell me, right? She would never. If she did it, wouldn't be true. Anyway, so uh, we had that connection at that level, right? So because her father's a billionaire, right? So and for me, that was good news at first because I'm thinking, well, I got a lot of money, so she's not after me for my money, right? Because she's got a
Yes.
father who's a billionaire, right? So that's good. But the story later came to light that because her father put her in that mental home, which she couldn't get out of, right? She hated her father. Well, she thought she hated her father, right? She would say that. And in her mind, if your father doesn't love you, then what man will ever will? And
Mm.
she's this beautiful. I mean, just seeing pictures of her when she was in her teens, she was so beautiful, you wanted to cry. It was just so incredible, right? But, and a lot of women don't realize that kind of beauty can be a curse,
Mm.
right? Because you never know why a man is there. And her experience was that men only wanted her for her looks and sex, right?
Mm. Yes.
So she hates her father and then hates men, right? And so she set about, but she's also super intelligent, right? Because her father's a genius, right? So she got some of those intelligence genes. And so she set about manipulating men, taking all their money, wealth, and belongings from them and throwing them away. She was the Venus flytrap, right? And I didn't realize that to that extent until later. And guess who told me? Her father. Her
Wow.
father told me. And I called him because we were in a situation where she got drunk, so she was an alcoholic. And I recognized that because I'd been married to an alcoholic before. Again, my tendency to go after women, they're a little wild, right?
Mm.
So, and so it had a whole scene the whole day because I found out because she'd drunk a half a bottle of Captain Morgan's rum and she'd left it under the sink in the guest lavatory, toilet, whatever. And the door was slightly open and I could see it. And as soon as I saw it, I knew because I don't drink, right? And
Mm.
that bottle was full. It wasn't even opened, and there it's half empty, right? And like I said, I've been married to an alcoholic before, so I knew instantly. So obviously, what most most people would do is say, "Okay, I found out she's here for the weekend. Let's enjoy the weekend. I'll take her home, and that's the end of it, right?" That would be the sensible thing to do.
Yeah.
But like I said, I'm not sensible, right? So I decide that's not what I want to hear. So I call my friend over, Jerry, who plays a big part in the book, uh, to get his advice. And I could bring him over because I also know if I confront her, it's not going to go well and it could end really badly. And I don't want to be in a situation where I could be accused of hitting her, getting into a physical altercation. And I knew she was capable of pushing for a physical altercation, right? So I brought him over. She's still in bed. It's a Saturday morning. And we go upstairs on the balcony, and I said, look, this has happened. What do you think I should do? And what did he say? Exactly what I just said. He said, well, listen, man, there's no problem. Enjoy the weekend, have a good time with her, take her home on Sunday, and that's the end of it. But again, that's not what I wanted to hear. I'm like, you're no help, right? Because I wanted to fix it, right? I'm a guy. I got to fix it, right?
Yeah.
Rescue, save, and fix, right? So I go downstairs, by which time she's out of bed. She's in the kitchen. And so I ask her, right, about this bottle of rum. Bad idea, right? I mean, what's she going to say? Yeah, I drank it. I'm an alcoholic. What should we do? She's not going to say that, right? So and I said, there's a bottle of rum under the sink in the guest, toilet. And she says, well, why are you asking me? Right? The whole, so in the end, I end up cooking breakfast while she's sitting there and ask her if she wants any. And she makes this, yeah, I'm not going to eat that. It was beans and scrambled egg on toast. So you know how that good that is, right? In America, they don't appreciate that high quality cuisine, right? So anyway, I sit down at the table and I'm not giving her any attention. So she's mad, right? Because I'm not engaging in an argument with her, right? So she walks across and picks up the plate and just tips it in my lap, right? So now I got to go get changed, right? But this is going on, right? She's playing out. So finally, we went to the gym, Jerry and I, and we came back, and she disappeared. I knew she was in the house, but she loved playing hide and seek. So anyway, I don't know where she is. So finally, she'd given me her father's phone number when we first met. So I called him, right? I'm thinking, he doesn't know me from Adam. He doesn't know my name, doesn't know I'm dating his daughter, but I called him, and I was thinking, he probably won't even pick up because he won't recognize the number. But he did. He picked up. And so now I'm trying to figure out what I need help. I need support here. What should I do, right? So he said, I said, I don't know if you know this. His name is Mr. Kingston. But it's not his real name. I mean, that's the name I'm using in the book, right? To make sure I protect his privacy. And I said, do you know that your daughter's an alcoholic? I mean, who says that right out the gate, right? Anyway, so he goes, oh, yeah, I know. And then I'm thinking, well, why aren't you doing anything about it, right? So he says, I've put her through rehab more times than I can remember. The last time, it cost me $100,000, and she checked out after 3 days.
Whoa.
He said, she won't change. And he said, look, he said, is she in your house right now? And I didn't want to say, yeah, but I don't know where. I said, yeah. He said, well, get her out and don't ever let her back in there again. If you do, you're a fool. He said, she'll take you for everything you have. She's done it many times before. The last guy, he almost went to jail for 15 years.
So how far into the relationship was this?
About 3 weeks. Right? So you got to be thinking, what? And you were in this for 3 years, so you got back together, right? Sounds insane. But when I use the analogy of the Venus Flytrap. So the Venus Flytrap lets out a nectar that attracts the fly. And then the fly becomes disorientated and confused. So she was very good at manipulating and very good at distorting the truth. So she'd already told me early on, so that I had a distorted view of her father, that she'd caught her father with his gay lover when she was a teenager, and that she had told her mother, and that he had never forgiven her for doing that. And her parents ended up in a divorce, and he hated her, and he was doing everything he could to destroy her. And so she's saying, there's never been any rehab. He's never done anything for me. He hates me and all these things, which clouded everything, right? And of course, you tend to gravitate to the side of the story you want to.
Absolutely, yeah.
You
want to believe, what suits you.
Exactly. So this kind of thing, though, Lyn, would happen all the time. Madness and mayhem. Sometimes I would throw her out of the house, but then she'd call me back and she'd be so sorry. Can I get another chance? And then I would say, well, this is going to have to happen. That's going to happen. So one of the things initially was she had to agree to go to AA meetings and that we would go to therapy and I would come with her, right? But at those times, she would agree to anything, having no intention of doing any of it, right? Just to get what she wanted in the moment. Although we did go to one therapy session, which was hilarious. It's in the book, right? It was hilarious. But anyway, she was never going to go consistently. It was never on the cards. And she would play things out. So she'd go to rehab for a day and they do an intake and she would just blow the whole meeting up, right? And then they wouldn't let her back in again. So it wasn't her fault, right? It's not my fault, right? They threw me out and they won't let me back in again. What can I do, right? She was very good at that. So, and this is how it went on. So, I don't know, does that answer your question a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So, why do you think it is that we attract unhealthy relationships? What is it about somebody that draws us in? Is it to do with do you think the bigger picture of us learning life lessons that we need to learn?
I do. Yeah, I really do. Like I said, I believe, and this is easy to say, it's a whole different thing to live this belief, right? That nothing happens to us, everything happens for us. But that doesn't happen instantly, right? We're all human, right? So let me give you a quick example. So we were up and down, right? Kind of like us, right? And so our relationship was extremely volatile, right? So we would break up all the time. And so we're at this point where we're broken up. She's taken one of my cars and gone on a binge somewhere, I don't know where. And I travel 4 days of the week. So I had to leave town. And she knew that, right? So I go on my event, I leave town, and of course she knows when I'm going to be gone, and she comes back. And she usually she had a key, but I don't know, she could never find it. So anyway, she used to leave windows open so she could get in, right? Anyway, for whatever reason, I'd noticed some windows open, and just like you would normally, you just close them and you lock them, and so she didn't have a way to get in. So and I know that's not going to stop her, right? She just broke in, right? Smashes a window, and she sets off the alarm. So as it would happen, right, that fairly recently there'd been some criminal activity in the neighborhood, and the police were very slow to react. So the director of the community calls up the chief of police and chews him out and said, listen, we pay all this money in taxes and you're slow to come out here and blah, blah, blah. So obviously he's not happy about that, right? So now there's an alarm going off in the neighborhood. So he's like, okay, let me show you how hot we can come out, right? So they had 6 squad cars, 2 SUVs. They brought the police dogs out, and the dogs are running through everybody's garden in the neighborhood, right? All the police lights are on, so the whole neighborhood is lit up, which I paid the consequences for later. But anyway, then they call me. And, when I told you about that first incident, we had the police come out that night, right? I called them, but she'd already called them. And she was hoping I was going to get arrested. So this was her MO, right? If she can say things that cause them to arrest me, then I would go to jail just for a night. But then she would get a restraining order against me, and I wouldn't be able to go back to the house. As she was a guest, I can't tell her to leave. I would have had to evicted her, which would have taken 6 months. Then she would have had everything. She would have sold all my furniture. She would have had my cars. She would have had everything. Right? I didn't know that, but that was her MO, right? That was how she did exactly what I told you she'd done many times before. And later on, I found out from her father she'd been doing that for 20 years. Anyway, so the police call me. We were almost on first name terms at that point, right? So they called me and they said, yeah, she's here. She wants to get in the house, And so I said, whatever you do not let her in that house, right? Because I know what she's capable of, right? So he said, let me call you back. So he calls the police chief, and then he calls me back. He said, I just spoke to the chief. All these people are getting involved in this. It's insane, right? So he says, we've got to let her in. He said, look, we've been out here. We've already been out here a bunch of times. And she obviously lives here. So he says, we've got to let her in. Oh, my God. So I go back after the event. So for 3 days, I'm wondering what the hell she's done, right? So I get back to the house, and of course, she's gone. She's nowhere to be seen. And I walk in the house and everything's fine. Everything is where it was. Everything looks fine. So I go in the kitchen and I put the kettle on, right? I'm going to make a cup of tea. I come back in the kitchen and the kettle isn't boiling. So I go over to the kettle. I look at, not boiling, right? So I look at the back of the kettle. She's cut the wire. Right? So you went there right away, right? You know that's not the only thing she cut the wire to, right? And so you smile, right? She's cut the cable to every electrical appliance in the house, right? And then so that's happened. And I sit down, I go, I know that's not everything, right? I know she's done other stuff. Now, when I was a kid, go back to my childhood for a minute, my mom had bought me school clothes that were just way too big for me. The overcoat would still fit me to this day. So when you look stupid, the other kids are merciless, right? They're going to tease you, humiliate you. And the teachers weren't any better then, I'm sure you remember the album by Pink Floyd, The Wall, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. So clothes became a source of embarrassment and humiliation for me. So by the time I was 9, I was buying my own clothes. So I did little things, I saw you could buy 5 cigarettes. But I then would break them up and sell them one at a time, and I'd make some money, right? So I could save it to buy my own clothes. So I'm wearing my own school clothes by the time I'm 9, and so clothes became very important to me, right? I always wanted to look immaculate, so nobody could tease me or humiliate me for my clothes, right? So fast forward to this situation, I'm making millions of dollars a year, right, at that time. So I have a wardrobe to die for, right? And I'm thinking, oh my God, no, don't tell me, right? So I go to the closet, and initially, everything looks fine. Everything. So I go in there, and of course, I pull the clothes back. Oh my God, she's cut them all up, right? Everything. And the shoes. She snipped the corners.
Oh my goodness. Proper
Yeah.
bunny boiler stuff then.
Oh, so my point is, at that time, in that moment, I did not say, well, that's fine, because everything happens for me, right? That's not real, right? I'm human, right? I was fuming. I was so angry. And I say, I didn't want to hurt her, but I did want to kill her. So it takes a while. It's when you're committed to that belief, it doesn't instantly come to you why it's happened for you. So first of all, you got to get rid of the anger, the victimness. She did it to me, all that stuff. You got to go through that process. And then, like, I don't know, 24, 36 hours later, I finally collapse into an armchair looking out the window at the lake. And I go, okay, so this happened to me. This happened for me, right? This is going to be good. So how has this happened for me? I'm having this conversation with myself, right? So like I said, it's a process. So the first thing that comes up is probably not going to be it, right? Because you're still calming down and trying to temper your feelings and emotions. So the first thing that came up is, well, it's only clothes. You can replace clothes. And then your brain goes, listen, man, those were really nice clothes, right? So then the other side comes in, right? So finally, I get it. I go, attachment. I was attached to those clothes. And what that means is when you're attached, you think it's part of who you are, that it's part of your identity. And I go, those clothes are not who I am, and they're not me. They're not part of my identity. But I've made them that without realizing it consciously. So she gave me that gift. Now, that doesn't stop there, does it?
No.
I made that, right. Okay, I'm attached to those. What else am I attached to, right? And so that begins an even longer process of letting go attachment to everything, the house, the cars, everything, right? But my other point is, to finish it off, is this. If I hadn't adopted that belief, I would still be mad at her for that today.
Yeah, absolutely. And who's that hurting? Only you.
That's exactly right. Exactly. I'm not, I know you know this stuff, right? I'm not preaching to you. I've been preaching to the choir, right? So yeah. But that's what I'd say to people. Listen, if you can adopt that belief and really, really own it and really say, it doesn't mean they didn't do what they did. It doesn't mean she didn't cut up those clothes. It doesn't mean that she was consciously aware that she was doing it for me, so it doesn't mean if you're in an abusive relationship if the guy didn't hit you. He did, right? But there is something there for you to realize in yourself that you attracted that guy into your life, period, right?
Yeah.
Now, that's a lot to take on, and that's not something you would start out on in counseling, right? Because that's too far, too quick. But the point is you can take people there, right, through different processes. So it's changed my life, because once you adopt that belief, as you obviously know, you could no longer ever be a victim again.
Yeah, 100%. So, Stephen, this is a fascinating topic which we could talk about for hours, but I really need to get in. What is your best contact information should people want to find out more about you, your story, or connect with you to get any further help or assistance if they're in similar situations?
Yeah, okay. Thank you for asking. So first of all, and we talked about this earlier, right? There is a link that we sent, obviously, to Lyn, that she's going to put in the notes, that first of all, give you a link to get the first 3 chapters of the book. And the book is hilarious, very funny and very tragic and very beautiful. And there's a lot of love and everything is in there, right? But also, it really talks about this toxic relationship, but also what the tools are to not let it happen again. So, for instance, being vulnerable, vulnerable is a power, not something to fear, because when you can be vulnerable and let all the things out you've been afraid to mention all your life, like me being in a mental institution, me being humiliated at school and by various things, and putting that in a book, it gives you freedom that you can't get any other way. Why? Because now those things no longer have any power over you, right? You're no longer afraid if people find out about it. And, you go, what if people use it against me? Then they're not your friend. Now you'll discover who your friends really are. And your friends will say, so what? No big deal, right? And the people who are not your friends will use it against you, right? So you just got to accept that and overcome the fear of doing it, because then you're free. So those are the first 3 chapters. You'll be hooked by the end of the first 3 chapters. And then the other thing, and you just mentioned about, maybe spending more time with me. There's a link there for a complimentary 30-minute counseling session with me where we would get to know each other, and we would identify if there's a connection, if we feel like that we could help each other, and then we could go from there. And then my website is, I'm not going to give you the long link, but it'll be in the link, right? And there's a ton of stuff on there that can be helpful too. There's a ton of free stuff. There's, a guide on the 7 signs you're in a toxic relationship. There's another book there. It is a book called Welcome Home, which is about, going through this, why you're going through it, and how by facing those mirrors and owning them, it'll bring you home to who you are.
Brilliant. Love it. Thank you so much, Stephen. It's been a fascinating conversation. We'll have to get on another caller another time and do another episode. I've really enjoyed it today.
Well, good. Yeah, me too. And I would love that. So let's make it happen.
So it just leaves me to say that true love starts with opening our hearts. And until next time, goodbye for now.
Thanks for listening to the Hearts Entwined podcast. You can follow Lyn via the Facebook group 2 Hearts Entwined, or search Lyn Smith, inspirational speaker, at LinkedIn, or email lyn@hearts-entwined.com. That's LYN@hearts-entwined.com. Remember, true love starts with opening our hearts.